Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? So the Saints made a free agent signing here on Tuesday. Josina Anderson of CBS Sports Now tweeted, I'm told free agent defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul is officially signed with the Saints per his agent. Pierre-Paul will still report to the facility later this week, despite the team being on bye, in order to expedite his acclimation. Pierre-Paul is super excited to join New Orleans and make an impact and to help them win. So Josina Anderson initially reported that Jason Pierre-Paul worked out for the Saints on Monday. According to Pierre-Paul, he told Josina Anderson, quote, "I killed the workout. You can tell I've been active and not just sitting around. The head coach called me in his office to talk about it. I'm still figuring things out," end quote. That was a quote from Jason Pierre-Paul to Josina Anderson. You know a guy is not wanting for confidence when he tells a reporter, quote, "I killed the workout. You can tell I've been active and not just sitting around." God bless. That's what I want, man. If you're going to be an edge rusher who's going to bend the edge and try to go crush the quarterback's dreams, please, yes, have some confidence in yourself. This is very likely a result of Isaiah Foskey's injury. So Isaiah Foskey, a Saints second-round pick, who had been sort of playing as a rotational role for the Saints this year, coming off the edge, had the injury a couple of games ago and missed this past week against the Minnesota Vikings. So now adding Jason Pierre-Paul gives you a veteran presence off the end. And one of the things that I often talk about here when the Saints go and sign veteran players to a backup role, you really have two options when you look at it. You could either go younger and give a younger player the opportunity to earn those reps and sort of get their feet wet and prove that they belong. Or you can go with a veteran player who, while their physical ability may not be now what it was, but is still nonetheless a player who has been at the pinnacle of the game, and their knowledge, know-how, veteran savvy is going to serve them well, even in a reduced role. And I like the veterans. Now, I understand the Saints have the oldest roster in the NFL right now, and adding a 34-year-old Jason Pierre-Paul just makes you older. But I'm also not asking Jason Pierre-Paul to be a stud that's going to go get me double-digit sacks. Jason Pierre-Paul unquestionably has the pedigree. He was the 15th overall pick of the 2010 draft. He's won 2 Super Bowls. Of course, he won a Super Bowl with the Giants in 2011, and then he won one with Tampa in 2020. He's made 3 Pro Bowls in his career, and he's got 94.5 career sacks. Keeping in mind, back in 2015, he blew off half of his right hand and has been playing since then with this sort of weird glove on his right hand because he's missing a couple of fingers. So all of that speaks to the physical specimen Jason Pierre-Paul is and the ability that he's had at his best in his career. And it's not like this is a guy who hasn't been productive lately. There is the school of thought to suggest, okay, well, if Jason Pierre-Paul could still hack it with New Orleans or could still hack it in the NFL, then why did Baltimore let him go last year? And I understand that. He'd been with Tampa and then spent last year with Baltimore and they let him go. But he played a lot for Baltimore. He started 13 games for Baltimore a year ago. Played in 14 games, started 13 for the Ravens. Now, in those 13 starts, he only had 3 sacks and 5 TFLs. So I'm not sitting here telling you he set the world on fire in Baltimore. It's why he's not there anymore. But he started 13 games. The Saints aren't asking Jason Pierre-Paul to come in and be a starter. That's the biggest difference, right? The Saints are set with their starting ends. You broke off Cam Jordan this offseason and extended him, and after his great start, you broke off Carl Granderson and locked him up. You got your starters. You're not asking Jason Pierre-Paul to come in and give you 50 or 60 defensive snaps a game. You're asking Jason Pierre-Paul to come in and maybe give you 10 defensive snaps a game. When you need to give Carl Granderson a blow, or when you're going to a third down rush package and you want another pass rusher on the field, you put JPP on the field. And that makes sense. It's worth noting that today, at this very moment, 3:24 Central Time on Tuesday, November the 14th, it hasn't been stated yet if the Saints are signing Jason Pierre-Paul to the active roster or to the practice squad. I'm just operating under the assumption that if you're going to go add this player, presuming that he's going to be a replacement for Isaiah Foskey on Sunday, that you're going to have him active. Now, maybe not, or a week from Sunday, I should say, when the Saints play the Falcons. Maybe not, but it makes sense. The other players that the Saints have after Jordan and Granderson are Tano Passanio, Kyle Phillips, who's been mostly a special teamer, and Foskey, as we mentioned, who's injured. You also have Nico Lalos and Jordan Willis on the practice squad. So you've got bodies, but that goes back to the question where we started. Would you rather a guy like Jason Pierre-Paul, who's 34, the Saints clearly worked him out and determined he's in very good shape, and in his career has been a first-round pick, a 3-time Pro Bowler, he's won 2 Super Bowls, he's got that pedigree. Oh, by the way, he also spent 4 years in Tampa Bay with the Bucs. Who's your next opponent? You're playing the Atlanta Falcons. That's a team, an organization with which Jason Pierre-Paul is very familiar, having played him twice a year when he was in Tampa. He's also very familiar with your defense by virtue of the fact that you played him twice a year when he was in Tampa. There's a lot of things that just make sense about this. And so, as you go back to it, would you rather see Nico Lalos or Jordan Willis get their first action? Or would you rather a guy like Jason Pierre-Paul, who's in great shape, who's got great familiarity with your team and your opponents in the division, who has been a former Pro Bowler, who's won Super Bowls and has that pedigree and can bring that into your locker room? To me, it feels pretty obvious, especially because you're not asking him to be a starter. You got Jordan and Granderson. Can he just give you rotational snaps while Isaiah Foskey is out? And that's what I'm presuming why he's here. So for a lot of reasons, I really like the Jason Pierre-Paul signing, especially if you're getting him at the veteran minimum. It's well within salary cap constraints of what the Saints are looking for. It's not like you have to go make any type of big commitment. You didn't have to trade for this player, so you didn't have to give up a future asset to get him. There's just, if you just get your piece of paper and you get out your pen and you do the line down the middle and you say pros and cons, and you list the pros and you list the cons, it's a big, long list of pros, and really the only cons are, well, he's 34, and how productive is he? Well, if you get him in here and you play him against Atlanta and he stinks and you determine he can't run no more, then you cut him, and you've lost really nothing. But perhaps what you've got is a veteran player who can give you some really meaningful rotational snaps and deepen your rotation at defensive end for a team right now that is the worst in the NFL at getting to the quarterback. So, I like it. I like bringing in Jason Pierre-Paul, and here's hoping that he's healthy and still able to give the Saints something here defensively on a team that has really struggled defensively in the last month. Maybe Jason Pierre-Paul can give you a little bit of a boost here when you come out of your bye against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. It's also worth mentioning, as Josina Anderson noted, Jason Pierre-Paul is going to be in New Orleans. Even though the Saints have a bye, he's going to be in New Orleans working this week to try to get acclimated, get up to speed quickly for the game a week from Sunday against the Atlanta Falcons. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.